Terrific. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andy Weinstein. I am the CEO of ISS Group. There's a picture of me up in the left-hand corner there. It's a recent picture, so that's pretty much what I look like. I appreciate everybody taking the time today to attend today's session. We have a lot of good content to share. This is basically an encore performance, if you will, or encore presentation of what we provided at the last QAD Midwest User Group. I am joined by a host of my colleagues, starting with our special guest, Helena Parker. Helena is the IT manager at Detroit Chassis, and Helena will be telling us about her experience and Detroit Chassis' experience with implementing the ISS Group Procure-to-Pay solutions. She'll be coming on stage in a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in. For those of you who don't know who ISS Group is, this is just a pretty high-level summarized overview. We've been in business since 1986. Our business is providing solutions to the QAD community. That's where we live and breathe. 100% of our clients are QAD end users. Our solution focus is process improvement via data-driven approval routing and workflow. So we have our own approval routing and workflow technology. A number of you on the call today are using it, so you're familiar with it. We have a suite of solutions that are all real-time integrated with QAD out of the box. The first two, iPurchase and iVoucher, are our procure-to-pay solutions. And then we have two others, iApprove and iQuote. iApprove will be demonstrated today when we demonstrate our supplier onboarding solution that was built utilizing our iApprove technology. And then we provide a suite of solutions around our suite of services around our solutions. Again, just to drive home the point that all of our clients, all of them, 100% of them are QAD end users. So that's where we live and breathe. We've been in the QAD community since 1995, long time. This is a snapshot of some of our clients. Clearly, this is not a full list of all of our clients. I'm sure you recognize many of the names on this page here. Ed is here from Carlisle Brake and Friction, et cetera. We provide services and solutions to clients in all of QAD's vertical segments: life sciences, automotive, industrial, and consumer product. So what is the procure-to-pay process? Well, the traditional procure-to-pay process is functionality starting with creating purchase orders or purchase order requisitions that create purchase orders, receiving of the goods, reconciling supplier invoices via an AP automation functionality, and then actually cutting the checks or sending wire transfers or whatever it may be for payment. The traditional procure-to-pay process. What we are doing is we are expanding the definition of that process and adding two components to that model: supplier sourcing and supplier onboarding. Okay, and we'll be demonstrating the supplier onboarding as part of this webinar today. So we're expanding the definition of procure-to-pay. This new expanded model, if you will, is being brought to you via a collaboration with Strategic Information Group and DocLib. We have Amanda Goodson with us today, who will be talking about invoice payment. And we have Stephen Rosenthal from DocLib, who will talk about AP automation. We also have my partner, Peter Galvin, on the line here, and Peter will be handling the controls a little bit later in the webinar and providing a demonstration of our supplier onboarding solution, again, built using our iApprove technology. So let's start with talking very briefly about each one of the components of the new expanded procure to pay model. Let's start with supplier sourcing. So supplier sourcing, or the first release of our supplier sourcing functionality, is more about qualifying a supplier. It's not about finding a supplier. The release 2 will be about actually going out and finding suppliers based on a set of criteria. But the first release is where you've already identified potential suppliers that you want to do business with. You communicate with them. Supplier sourcing is more about qualifying a potential supplier that's not yet onboarded into QAD. So you have identified, we have a client, International Automotive Components, who came to us and said, I'm looking for a solution that will help me qualify a supplier, will help me gather the appropriate documentation I need from the supplier. It will answer a bunch of questions that the supplier needs to answer in order to qualify them. Once they're qualified, they will receive an RFQ. Only qualified suppliers will receive an RFQ. This is not an RFQ that will turn into a purchase order. This is, again, an RFQ just to obtain information from the supplier, pricing information, whether they're capable of delivering the products and services that we're looking for, things like this. It does allow the comparison of the responses from the suppliers, and then it will allow awarding the business. And you can award business to multiple suppliers. So maybe you have an RFQ with 5 line items on it that went out to 2 different or 3 different suppliers, and you can award each line item to a different supplier. And all you're really doing is you're going to communicate back to the supplier that you've qualified and you have been awarded this business, but you have not yet cut any purchase orders. Now, in addition to that new piece of functionality that we developed, we are now offering a new set of services. They're called supplier risk assessment and monitoring services. So when you want to bring a new supplier on board, you want to vet them. You want to perform a due diligence on those suppliers. You want to review their system and operational controls, their SOC controls, business continuity and disaster recovery, financial health, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we are now offering a suite of services, risk assessment and monitoring services, wrapped around our supplier sourcing functionality. We're pretty excited about that. The next component of the new expanded model is supplier onboarding. So supplier onboarding, again, this is onboarding to QAD. So let's assume the supplier has not yet been set up in QAD. The supplier request will be sent out via our iApprove solution. You have multiple stakeholders that need to review that request, maybe provide input as part of the workflow process in vetting that supplier. You also have stakeholders that need to approve the new supplier. And upon approval, a new supplier is created in QAD in real time. If the supplier already exists in QAD, you can update the supplier record in QAD. But again, the maintenance or the revisions will go through an approval routing process. And that approval routing is based on a set of rules that you, the end user, configures. So anybody on this call that's using our iPurchase solution knows what I'm talking about. You configure a set of what we call approval routing rules. That request, whether it's a new supplier onboarding request or a purchase order requisition request or a CapEx request or whatever that request may be, and it all works the same, gets routed based on a set of rules configured by the end user organization. And then upon approval, if the supplier already exists in QAD, we update the QAD record. So whether we create the QAD record for new supplier or we update the QAD record if it's an existing supplier. So first, you'll source the supplier, you'll qualify them, you'll award the business. That will then flow into the supplier onboarding functionality, which allows you to route to different stakeholders for input and approval, and upon final approval, create the record in QAD. The next thing then you're ready for is to start buying stuff. Okay, so this is a very, very, of course, simplified model here of our purchasing functionality. You will create a purchase order requisition. There are a number of different ways to create purchase order requisitions inside our purchasing solution. You will route the requisition for approval, again, based on your approval routing rules. Depending on security privileges, some of those users may have the security authority to provide input to that requisition as it's being routed. For example, in many cases, a lot of companies require the finance group to review requisitions and have the ability to update the GL data inside the requisition to make sure it's being charged to the right cost center, account, sub-account, project, etc. And then upon final approval, a purchase order is created in QAD in real time. Okay, so everything is integrated with QAD in real time. Okay. The next thing is supplier invoice, or in other words, AP automation. So I'm going to ask my colleague here, Steve Rosenthal, to talk a little bit about AP automation. Stephen?
Great. Yeah, thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining. I wanted to briefly walk through at a high level the steps that you would expect to see in automating accounts payable within QAD. So as you're all aware, this would be initiated by a supplier invoice. So typically we're seeing that come in via email. There's a variety of other ways that invoice may come into your business, but primarily via email. Step one that you see on the left here is extracting the data that we'll need from that PDF or whatever file format it might be coming in on, extracting that data to process it through the business. This is done via a technology called OCR. It's a whole set of types of solutions, fancy way of saying pulling data off of documents, but it's basically taking unstructured data that you would find on that invoice, making it structured, and feeding it into the system. A bit about our tool: it's built on Microsoft's tech stack. It's called DocIndex, and it utilizes an AI neural network that's provided by Microsoft as a part of our partnership with them. And we utilize that AI technology to gather the information relevant off that invoice, such as supplier name, amount, PO number, things of that nature. So after that is completed, then we're performing the full workflow that you can think of there on AP, and you're really managing the exceptions to that workflow. So two of those, very common exceptions are listed here on the slide for you. But you can think about validating that it's a valid supplier, that the PO is open, that it's not an there's receipts found for that PO and for that invoice, that we're associating those together, performing that three-way match. And then all your team is responsible then for is managing exceptions that may exist in that workflow. The gold standard there for our tool is that there are no exceptions and there's no real need for interaction with that invoice manually, and it's completely automated. There are about 30 to 40 or so real-time integration points within our AP workflows out of the box that you get with DocLive there, and a tremendous amount of reporting and dashboarding functionality to get visibility into the process and what might be open in process. So that's the three boxes that you see there in the center of this workflow. And then on the right hand side, creating that supplier invoice or voucher if you're on SE in QAD automatically. We utilize QAD supported software regardless of your version to create that transaction in QAD. That's done real time. We're built on the same tech stack as QAD, so we have a very tight integration and are able to create that transaction on the back end. The full audit trail that you may need as a part of this workflow and this process is available to you. All the documents and supporting documents like AP checks, supplier PO, receipts, bills of lading, anything of that nature are also saved and readily available. So in a nutshell, very high level, that's kind of the AP automation process.
Terrific, terrific. Thank you, Stephen. That was perfect.
Sure.
Okay. And then last but not least, once those vouchers are posted into QAD, we actually need to pay them. Okay? And so I would ask Amanda Goodson from Strategic Information Group to talk to invoice payment. Amanda?
Thank you so much. So with Strategic Information Group, we offer what's called Enterprise Banking Solution. And as part of that is the activity of automating and integrating your payment process. So when you're in QED, you create that payment batch, and then you create we create for you that integration and automation. So the payment is exported automatically to the bank. Incorporated in that is controls around management of your supplier banking data, as well as approvals for the actual payments. The funds are transferred, your vendors are paid. We also have some functionality in the area of check runs. So if you have suppliers that are still wanting to be paid by check, you can still do that same check run, including your payment approvals within that. And there's two options. You can actually have a batch sent to your bank where the bank prints the checks for you and sends them to the supplier, or you can continue to print your checks yourself. And we have some functionalities that help clear when those checks are cashed and clear the bank to change the status within the system for you, as well as controlling your positive pay integrations. So this is what we call option A, so Enterprise Banking Solutions with Strategic. Now the second option that we have to offer, so go to the next slide here, is from CorePay. CorePay is a wonderful program that allows you to take all of your payments, your supplier invoices that need to be paid, and send a file out to CorePay. CorePay then does what they call optimizing the payment. So they're going to review that and they're going to determine, are these suppliers enrolled in our program to receive payment via credit card? And so what happens is that this solution would give your payable team the opportunity to become a profit center rather than a cost center, because there are return funds for you for utilizing this capability. It also helps your suppliers be able to receive their payments faster. Again, you still have the same ability to view payments, fold them, have approvals involved, but really the CorePay team helps do a lot of the activity for you. So it takes a lot of workload off of your payable team. And again, gives you the opportunity to do the V card to make money off of your payment of bills. So if you have any questions on the Enterprise Banking Solution or the CorePay capabilities, we'd be happy to set up some time to discuss that further. But with that, I will pass the reins back over to Andy.
Thank you, Amanda. Terrific. Okay, I have 4 slides here that I'm not going to go through, but I'm leaving them in the deck. And post-webinar, we'll be distributing this presentation, and that's why I'm leaving it in the deck. We just don't have time to go through these 4 slides, but this is a high-level list of features of the iPurchase solution with a data flow diagram showing you again some of the integration, and then a high-level feature list of the DocLive AP automation solution that Stephen was talking about, also with a data flow diagram. Okay, so those 4 slides, we're just going to skip over right now, but they will be in the deck that we distribute post-webinar. So then, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest, Helena Parker. Again, Helena is the IT manager at Detroit Chassis, and Helena is going to talk about their experience implementing our Procure to Pay solutions. So Helena, it's all yours.
Thanks, Andy. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Helena. I've been using QAD since probably 94, supporting the automotive industry. I'm currently the IT manager at Detroit Chassis. Detroit Chassis has been in business almost 25 years. Our headquarters is in Detroit. We're an automotive tier 1 supplier with one other location in Ohio. Detroit Chassis assembles a stripped chassis, which is used for the build out of RVs and delivery trucks. We're using QAD 2014 SE, and we have about 30 users or so. So our legacy purchasing system had many challenges. It made it difficult to follow the flow of a requisition from start to finish, the finish being the PO. Approval rules were difficult to maintain. The routing and the workflow had limited functionality. No escalation was available for slow approvals. Pending recs could not be easily modified in the case a team member was absent or left the company. We had no professional printing and no traceability, especially when it came to related documents like quotes and contracts. On the supplier side, we had challenges there as well. Most of our suppliers were using payment holds and stop ships because of payment issues. And most of those issues stemmed from the administration of invoices. So invoices not being submitted properly, supporting documents were not referenced, no PO on the invoice, receipts not available in the system, and price discrepancies. So all of these issues were tracked manually. The invoices were entered into QAD manually, just a lot of manual work, which made things easy to be lost and or forgotten. So we needed a way to resolve these problems, and this is where we found iPurchase and iVoucher. Our goal for implementing these, we wanted to reduce the time and the cost it took to create POs, streamline the process for creating requisitions, and for gaining approvals. We had a lot of manual entries, so we wanted to reduce or eliminate where we could and improve the time to reconcile invoice issues. We had a lot of lost, missing invoice, wanted to reduce and eliminate that issue. And all of this would free up our AP resources so that they could perform additional value add activities. So we had a manual filing system also in AP that we wanted to move away from this, especially for SOX compliance. And having online audit history is what we're looking to get. So, so if we could manage all of these issues and concerns, then we could improve our on-time payments, take advantage of discounts, and avoid late fees. So we implemented iPurchase in March of 2023 and iVoucher in October 2023. So these are the stats from that point. So we've created 1,213 requisitions and 1,213 POs. I just always like to make a note of that. There were no recs that weren't approved, but we have to get a little better with that. It's okay to deny. So You went a little bit fast for me on that one. Did we talk about the total spend, 6.4 million, and we cleared 996 invoices through iVoucher just in the 2-month period of time that we had in 2023. Okay, we can move on.
Now, these
So
stats, if I recall, these stats really were as of the April conference.
yes,
So these numbers obviously are higher at this point.
correct.
Yep.
And since we've implemented, I mean, the team hasn't had anything but good comments about the results. You know, the systems are easy to use. They're intuitive for new users. And of course, when a user likes the system, then they use the system. And so that just makes my life in IT a lot easier.
Excellent.
So did we meet our objectives? I'd say yes, we did. So on the purchasing side, we've seen a significant reduction in the time it takes to create POs, significant improvements in the approval routing, elimination of manual entry of POs into QAD. All the QADs are, all of the purchase orders are created in iPurchase. With that integration to QAD, we don't even really need to have 5.7 turned on. It's been easy to use, and a plus that we didn't expect on the purchasing side, we did pick up punch outs as an improvement. We have the detail in iPurchase for the POs and the receipts. You can see all of that right within the iPurchase system. And then we also have our documents online. So every requisition, we can add in the quotes, we can add in the contracts, and those documents follow that record is online for anyone who needs to see them. In AP, we have process standardization. We've got 75, almost, I'll say it's probably at the point that we took this, first did this presentation, we were around 80%. We've gone up since that, and we're continuing to improve, meaning that when the invoice comes in, it goes directly to okay to pay without a lot of interference from the users. Our resource time efficiencies have been recognized. We've reduced the amount of lost invoices. And most of all, we have an improved relationship with our suppliers.
Terrific. Terrific. Thank you, Helena. That's terrific. Okay.
Okay.
And last but not least, I'm now going to turn over the controls to my partner, Peter Galvin. Peter is going to perform a demonstration of our supplier onboarding solution. Peter, I'm going to stop sharing and you could pick it up.
All right, everyone can see it?
Yep.
So yeah, so welcome to I Approve Supplier Onboarding. Here we have our login page. We can log in with username and password that's stored in I Approve, or we can use your Okta or Microsoft 365 OAuth 2 related single sign-on. You even have Google as an example. But we'll log in as Andy. Andy's just a regular user. When he logs in, he's going to see his approval queue. So all the recs that require his approval based on all of the different I Approve forms that he has access to. So today we're talking about supplier onboarding. So he has one that he needs to approve. And on the bottom, he has all of his requests that he's initiated. So he can, make his own requests. And those are all the different forms that he has access to. So we'll look at supplier onboarding. These are all the ones that he's tried to make in the past. And we have a convenient new button. So the new button will bring us to the form, but first it'll give us this pop-up browse of all of our supplier onboarding requests. And this represents all of the suppliers and all of the change orders to those suppliers in the system. And Andy can look in here for one that he wants to work on, an existing one, or he can press the new button to start a new one. Now, when we created this form, it was for a company, a life sciences company. And they have over 7,000 suppliers. They work with doctors, and almost every single doctor is a supplier. So they want to make sure they don't put that doctor in twice. So they have this duplicate detector. So we'll put in Boston as our supplier name. Use a federal tax ID, all threes. We'll put in my address, and then we'll check for duplicates. So we just went through the system and we found the 3 closest matching for the data that we put in. So Massachusetts, so Andy put in this information, but maybe he really meant Peter 3 as the supplier he wanted to work with. So he could select that one and do a change order, or he can just create a supplier. He's going to create a new message. So here we now are in the supplier form, onboarding form. It is made up of tabs across the top and then panels down the bottom or down the row. And each panel has, related information. And as you click through them, they all come up. We have mandatory fields that are in red, little asterisks. And if we ever tried to save it and we didn't fill out those mandatory fields, it'll give us a list of all the ones that we need to still work on. And even further down here, we have the Sunshine Act compliance. Right now, it's disabled for us because we haven't configured this supplier enough to require the Sunshine Act compliance. So we'll go back up to the top and we'll check to make sure our name is right. This will be an active supplier. And then we have some questions to ask. Is this a dropship location? In QAD, as you might know, you can have suppliers that are just dropship addresses for other suppliers. So if you said yes to that, we would actually drop a bunch of tabs that are not relevant because all you're really doing is creating an address. And we'll say no to that. Also important, is this supplier a healthcare professional or a healthcare organization? If that's true, then that triggers our Sunshine Act compliance. So we'll say okay. And if we come down to our panel here, we'll see it's now activated for us. And our third major question is, will this supplier be used in operations? And if that's true, then we need to make sure it's qualified. And there's a supplier quality tab has just appeared, and it has a bunch of panels inside of it with important information. So we'll say yes to all that. And then what we'll do is we'll continue going down some of these panels. In this next one here is miscellaneous company details. We have a question here about supplier spend type. This is not a field in QAD, but it's a field that's important to this supplier, to this customer for all their suppliers. And we just have a couple of choices here of what type of spend is this, for office supplies. So this is the type of question that we can put into I approve that's not important for QAD, but it's important for the business. And we can control what values are in these boxes very easily. Just an admin person can update this list. But as we go down, we see a question about ship via. Ship via is a field in QAD, so we're able to go to QAD and get the latest list of ship vias. We go to tax information. We'll use our federal tax ID. Put that in our tax zone. And then we have a W8, W9 form. So most suppliers, require this form. And we have just a small, simple mechanism to upload that form. You can type in a comment, or you can choose a file. I have a W9 here, ready to go. Save it. So now we've uploaded a W9, tells you when, who did it and when. A little comment, you can edit the comment, you can delete the attachment. And also we put a little star here that shows you that you've uploaded something. And then furthermore, we can put a date as to when we receive that file. And later on, we can have a job that runs that looks at all the suppliers and all their, W9 receive dates, and things that are a year old, 2 years old, whatever, you decide. We can create an alert that says, or a reminder that says, these suppliers should be looked at to get verify their W-9 information is correct. And there's places around for other documents to be uploaded. They all get a star. They're all marked in our supporting documents tab. So here we just uploaded a W-9 form, put a comment, have a file, and you can click on that and see the same details. If we come back here, we'll just continue on through our form. Is this a small business or a large business? If it's a small business, then there's some diversity information that's important. That added a supplier diversity tab. So I'll say okay to that. Is this ISO certified? Sure. We have an address disclaimer. Is headquarters the same as your remit to? If it is, then we won't be required to add a remit to address. But if we say no, we'll be told to add one. And then we have our Sunshine Act compliance. We put in our NPI number. Again, if we hit save, it's going to tell us there's still stuff that we're missing. So we'll go on to the next tab, addresses. We have locations and contacts. So by default, we have the head office. We can add a new location. We have location types. Of these location types, the first two are required for QAD, but we have a third one here that they needed called ship to. And this was just for information for the customer. It has nothing to do with QAD. But we'll create a remit to address. Let's put my name in there. Hit close. So now we have our two addresses. Then we have a contacts tab, and we can add a new contact. And QAD requires really just only a purchase order contact. This will be where the PO is sent. So save that. But we also have a big list here. So this other customer had lots of different contacts. None of these are in QAD except for purchase orders. You can create your own contact types and have lots of contacts. So now we'll go to our supplier quality tab. This is all just questions. None of this information is in QAD, but we could upload our ISO certifications. We can update our quality information, products and services. None of this information is in QAD, but it's all important. And then we have a supplier classification. Is this process critical, major, minor, all that good stuff. Then we have a purchasing tab, which shows our payment terms and currency type. This data comes right from QAD, so we are not fooling around with bad data. And our purchasing details, just some more questions, Incoterms. We have our supplier diversity tab, which has diversity codes. So it's a small veteran business. Diversity number, just put a number in. If you have any documents, you can upload them. Now I can hit save, and the record's updated. And now I can submit it. Or Andy can submit it. So he submitted it. He can say, oh, I forgot something. He can retract it, resubmit it. But now we can look at our approval history, and we have just a very simple rule set up. We have a supervisor rule. Andy, he submitted this. His supervisor's Scott, but Scott's out of the office. So Andy was able to just automatically approve it for himself. And then it went to me. And when we create the rules can be based on every single field on that form. There's about 165 different fields we can create rules for. And, they'd all go through here and flow. But for the demo purposes, it just really goes to me. So one thing that you may have questioned about is when you create a supplier, there was no banking or GL information entered. So Andy wouldn't know anything about that stuff necessarily with our segregation of duties. Someone from finance would have to manage the banking information. So when we log out and we log in as me, we come back here and we see my approvals that are required in my approval. Here's the one that Andy just made for Boston. You'll click on that. And now we'll see that I have a financial tab. So I would look through all this information, but if I just tried to save it, it'll tell us that have some invalid accounts. And we'll just go right to the financial tab, and we have new information to enter. We have a payment type. And we have our banking information. This banking information comes right from QAD. We can add a known bank, and then we get a list of all our banks in QAD. Type in our account numbers. When's this effective from? Save. And we also have this opportunity to request a new bank, a bank that's not in QAD. And you can type in some notes. You can upload a file, banking information. Press save. And then we can put rules on here that say, someone from finance needs to look at this bank request to see if it's, valid, and then to actually perform the process. And then we have our GL accounts. These come from QAD. Sub-account, cost center. I can press save, and now it's updated. Now I can approve it, I can reject it, I can return it back to somebody else in the approval routing. But I'm gonna just approve it for demo's sake while it's processing. Just for demo purposes, we didn't actually go to QAD, but I'm telling you we did. So we would use QExtend normally. Normally we use QExtend to talk to QAD, but there's other ways of doing it as well. And what that would have done is it would have given us a new supplier number, and this supplier would have been active in QED, not on payment hold. We can look at our supporting documents, and also just as important, we can see our audit trail. So Andy created this request, then he did a couple updates, then I came in and did some more updates. And that's about it. Yeah, notes and attachments, audit trails.
Terrific.
I'm sorry, Andy?
Was there anything else you wanted to show?
No, I think that's it. We have this little print button that shows the printout of what we did, very simple. And then also the approvals are all email based. So you get the same email you get in iPurchase to approve it. You can approve from the email. And that's about it.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, we'll go back to my screen. Good job, good job. So that pretty much wraps up our webinar for today. We still have a few minutes left in the hour. If there are any questions for any of our panel guests, we have, again, Amanda Goodson from Strategic Information Group. We have Stephen Rosenthal from DocLib. We have Helena from Detroit Chassis, and we have Peter and myself from ISS Group. So if anybody has any questions, Glenn, if you want to unmute everybody, please feel free. I don't know if there's a chat box that people can type their questions into.
They can't chat, they can actually speak.
Okay, so please don't be shy. Anybody? Nobody? No questions? Glenn, nobody keyed anything into the chat?
You can see your messages reporting on.
Andy, this is Amanda from Strategic. I'll go ahead, and since we've got a minute here, I'll add just one more thing about the core pay solution and the V cards.
Yeah.
So with that solution, it doesn't cost you anything to have us see if it would get you a return on investment. With that solution, we're able to take your payables for the last 6 months or the last year and bump those against the supplier list that Corpay already has an established V-card relationship with and tell you instantly how much you would have made utilizing Corpay. And that amount is quite often more than the cost of the solution. And it costs nothing to do that evaluation. So just keep that in mind if the Corpay V-card caught your eye at all.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Extra plug there.
Amanda, question is, do you have to be on EE or does it work with any version for Corpay?
Walter, I'm going to defer to you on that one. Are you able to answer that?
Sure, yeah, yes, I can. So full automation at this point requires Enterprise Edition, but we can do it with SC with a partial integration.
Okay.
Let me know if you want to talk more about that at some point, hit me up.
Okay. Thanks.
Great question. Thank you.
Okay, as I mentioned a bit earlier, we will be sending out this deck to everybody who's attended today. So please be on the lookout for that. Thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to get back to me directly or any one of our panelists. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. We'll be happy to schedule demonstrations for any component or all the components of the expanded Procure to Pay model that we presented. And once again, we thank everybody for taking the time today in the middle of the summer. We hope everybody enjoys the rest of their summer.